But later, it was kind of ironic. I would later find that Peter Wood's very important book, Black Majority, which made the link to the rice-growing areas of West Africa, including Sierra Leone, was published the very year I left for the Peace Corps. Things started to kind of tumble into place a little bit later on. Most Americans don't know that only about 4 or 5% of the African captives sent across the ocean in the Atlantic slave trade came here to North America. That 95–96% were taken to the sugar plantations, principally in the West Indies and in Brazil. So the last thing, as I started to research the Atlantic slave trade, the last thing I thought in the early days of my research was that Bunce Island would have any particular connection to my own country. But it turned out, of course, that it did. Although it has to be said that the vast majority of the captives from Bunce Island did go to the Caribbean basin. Nonetheless, of all of the castles, slave castles along the West African coast, Bunce Island still has much stronger connection than any of the others with our own country, with North America. And that's why there's going to be interest and research done for years and years on Bunce Island, and more connections will be found to the Low Country area. We're just scratching the surface now. And that's all I'm allowed to say at this point, although at lunch, Krista Course and I will be saying more about Bunce Island. But Joel has given me a more difficult task here, and that's to talk about Sierra Leone today. My principal interest all these years in Sierra Leone, I've lived there for off and on for 17 years, has been the Bunce Island research and connection to Sierra Leone, between Sierra Leone and the Gullah people in the Low Country. But living there and making Sierra Leone my second home and being there in the early years of the Rebel War, it got to a point where I had to either leave or join with my friends and somehow address the violence. You can't just study history when people are being butchered where you live. And as the war got moving, got going on, and you heard about the violence and you found that your friends are being murdered, places you love up in the interior are being laid waste, you have to do something. And in situations like that, you learn who's willing to put their lives at risk to bring about some sort of order, and who isn't. And I learned who among my friends were heroes, men and women. And so I joined in 1995 with two good friends, Zainab Bangura, who would later be the foreign minister, and Julia Spencer, who would later be